This is Bullets with AWR Hawkins, a Breitbart.com podcast. Here he is, the host of the podcast, AWR Hawkins.
Welcome to Bullets with AWR Hawkins, a Breitbart News podcast focused on guns, gun rights, the Second Amendment. We sum all those things up here under the banner of freedom. We do it each week, and it's because an armed citizen is a free citizen. It's as simple as that. Folks, what a week this was. What a week it was. I still am trying to figure out this, and I mean this when I say it. Which are my two favorite days politically of my lifetime? A, the election of President Trump. B, the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh. Seriously. Now, I know that without the election of President Trump, we would have never had the nomination, therefore never had the confirmation of Kavanaugh. So if I look at it that way, President Trump's election takes precedence. But I'm just saying, wow. Two of the biggest days in our history, as far as I'm concerned, and have been able to witness them both. It was just awesome. And by witness them, I don't mean that I was there at the confirmation. What I mean is alive to see it. And it's just phenomenal. Brett Kavanaugh understands the Second Amendment like very few humans, period. I'm not much less, justices. He understands the Second Amendment. You remember how he handled Senator Feinstein? Common use. AR-15s have constitutional protection. They are in common use, and he's appealing to the language in the majority opinion of Heller. They are in common use. Why? Because they are widely possessed. Millions upon millions are owned. And he pointed out these AR-15s and other commonly owned semi-automatic rifles, and that's how we should sum them all up. They're commonly owned semi-automatic rifles. They're used for hunting and self-defense. They are. I know. Senator Bill Nelson says AR-15s aren't used for hunting. I'm not so sure Senator Bill Nelson has the cognitive powers of Vice President Joe Biden. So let's just leave it at that. So anyway, what a day. What a week. And the left tried their best to destroy Kavanaugh's life. Folks, what a lesson in how the left works. You remember in the podcast last week, we talked about how the left will go to any extent to recoup the reputation of one of their own, to protect the reputation of one of their own. And truth can be the first casualty. Truth can be the casualty. They don't care. They will rally around their own and protect them. In the same way, the left, like a bunch of piranhas, will literally eat, annihilate, destroy their enemies. They don't care. They do it without apology. You saw that with Kavanaugh. That is a lesson worth tucking away and holding on to. The left understands politics is power. Politics equals power. And they'll do anything to keep that power. That was refreshing, wasn't it, to see the GOP wake up? To see the GOP wake up, I say kudos to Senator Mitch McConnell. Kudos to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. And kudos to Senator Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham was unbelievable. So here's what I think Lindsey Graham did. I was asked about this on Armed American Radio when host Mark Walters asked me about it. How do you explain what Graham has done, the about face he's made? And here's what I think Graham did. And some of you listening, you may go, what does this have to do with firearms? It has everything to do with firearms. Because your firearm rights, my firearm rights, our rights to self-defense will now be protected for generations because Kavanaugh is on the court. He is Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And that in large part due to Senator Lindsey Graham, who did an about-face, who turned from being a McCain-like moderate to being a firebrand for Trump's agenda. Now, here's what I believe happened. And this is my belief. I can't say, hey, this is exactly it. But this is my opinion. Trump showed the way. The only way the left controls you or controls me, the only way, apart, of course, from the passage of law, but in debate and in dialogue, the only way they control you and I is through coercion. Shame coercion, I like to call it. They shame you. They shame you into doing what they want. They do the same thing with a leftist senator with a Republican. They'll shame that Republican into cowering. They put political correct restraints on him or her. And they want to shame them into cowering and doing what the left wants. And Lindsey Graham cast off those politically correct fetters. He cast off those chains. And when he did, it's like you could see it in that grin that he put on all week. Lindsey Graham understood, hey, guess what? Guess what? They can't do anything to me. I'm free. Folks, Trump won the presidency showing that. And now Lindsey Graham is modeling it in the Senate. And I'll tell you what, he's not the only one. Again, I already mentioned Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. But I believe something that happened with the Kavanaugh confirmation, apart from the greatest thing, which is that Kavanaugh was confirmed, apart from that, what else happened is a bunch of Republicans realized, wait, we don't need to let these people control us. These Democrats are animals. I won't be controlled by these animals. And once you realize that and you cast it off, then you can do like Lindsey Graham does, and you can literally laugh at them. And he did laugh at protesters. He laughed in their faces. They were powerless to stop him. Folks, it's a new day. Justice Brett Kavanaugh is on the court. He's on the court. And your Second Amendment rights are protected. Now, understand, I know you know, but I want to say, that doesn't mean that California Democrats aren't going to keep passing gun control. It doesn't mean Cuomo in New York isn't going to pass gun control. It doesn't mean that the governor of Connecticut's not going to support gun control, and on and on and on I could go. But what it means is when we challenge these gun controls in court, and when I say we, I mean the body of gun rights groups, when the Second Amendment Foundation, who is busy in court, busy, when they challenge these gun controls in court, or when the NRA does it, or when the Second Amendment Foundation and the NRA do it together, when the California Rifle and Pistol Association brings suit, even in a loss, there's a victory because it can be appealed and appealed until it finally reaches the Supreme Court. And now with Kavanaugh on, we can start flipping some of these gun controls, repealing them. Folks, it's a great day. It is a great day. Now, an important point to make, and we made this at Breitbart over the weekend, but it's very important. Kavanaugh's confirmation, his nomination, number one, and then his confirmation. This is Trump doing exactly what he said he'd do. I talked to my brother this weekend, and we talked about this. And isn't it weird? Of all the politicians you can think of, name the one politician who literally did everything he said he would do. And I know he's still doing it. He's not done. But it's Trump. He's literally doing exactly what he campaigned on. You'll remember October 9th, 2016. It was during the presidential debate. Trump said that he was going to use Supreme Court appointees to save the Second Amendment from, quote, people like Hillary Clinton, unquote. You remember that? I love how he talked to her, by the way. I loved how he talked to her. Because, see, you were supposed to bow down before Hillary. Remember? That, now, I know you may not even remember that now. It's been so long removed from us. But Trump took the Clinton hierarchy and the Clinton dynasty, if there was one, and he destroyed it. He pulled it down. He pulled it down. He defeated them just like he defeated the Bush dynasty. But he said he would use Supreme Court nominees to shore up the Second Amendment, that he would use such nominees to save the Second Amendment from people like Hillary Clinton. He's done that. Folks, it's just a great day. Our Second Amendment is protected. Our right to keep and bear arms, our right to self-defense, those rights are protected. All right? Now, look, there's still some things we have to watch out for, though. Now, I know we have people that listen to this podcast from all over the world. I've gotten emails from you in Australia, in Canada, in Europe. I get emails from you. I know you're there. I hear your comments. All right? And listen, wherever you are, there's a fight that continues. And if you're here in the continental U.S., and especially if you're in a red state but have a blue senator or a Democrat senator, the fight is really on in the next 30 days. If you live in Montana, your senator is Jon Tester. He claims to be pro-gun, but guess what? He voted against Justice Neil Gorsuch last year. He voted with Chuck Schumer against that justice. And again, on October 6th of this year, he voted with Chuck Schumer against Brett Kavanaugh. Now, how can you be pro-gun, yet vote against two of the most pro-gun justices ever put forward? Explain that to me. Look at Senator Bill Nelson in Florida. He was always telling people how he supports the Second Amendment, but he is on record for these things. He supports universal background checks. He supports a ban on commonly owned semi-automatic firearms, which other people would call an assault weapons ban. He supports denying constitutional rights for long guns to citizens age 18 to 20. And he pushed legislation for a national database for firearms and firearm owners. That's not conspiracy talk. He pushed it. In 2014, we've covered it at Breitbart. Yet he claims to support the Second Amendment. Explain that to me. Folks, if you live in Montana, you're better than Jon Tester. You're better. You deserve better. And if you live in Florida, you deserve better than Bill Nelson. It's just a fact. Both of these men portend more gun control for you. Look, Jon Tester over there in Montana, he stood with Senator Dianne Feinstein after the Orlando Pulse shooting and supported more gun control. See, you can't say I'm pro-gun or I'm pro-Second Amendment, but you react differently to every wave that hits you. See, when you're pro-Second Amendment, you're saying you stand with that Constitution. That Constitution doesn't change. Doesn't matter what happens. It does not change. So when Jon Tester tells me he's pro-gun control, but he opposes pro-gun control Supreme Court nominees, when Bill Nelson tells me he's pro-Second Amendment, but he supports I don't know how many new gun controls, including a firearm database, no, doesn't work. Vote them out, folks. Vote them out. Vote out Jon Tester. Vote out Bill Nelson. If you live in Missouri, Senator Claire McCaskill, same kind of person. She'll tell you she's pro-Second Amendment. She will. But she supports gun control. She supports gun controls that are very similar to Bill Nelson's gun controls. Vote her out. Vote her out, folks. There's a reason that these senators, that McCaskill gets an F from the NRA or a D from the NRA, a reason that Nelson does get an F from the NRA, a reason that Jon Tester does get a D from the NRA. There's a reason for this. These horrific grades are because, or horrific ratings are because these senators support gun control. Folks, you got to vote them out. And if you live in Tennessee, come on now. This is an easy one. If you live in Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn is the pro-gun candidate, period. Phil Bredesen, Democrat. That ought to be all you need to hear when I say that. If I say Marsha Blackburn, Republican, Phil Bredesen, Democrat, as soon as you hear the word Democrat, you should go, nope, not voting for him. Look, Bredesen supports a range of gun controls, folks. He really does, including universal background checks, just like Bill Nelson. Which means you'd be criminalized for selling a gun, a neighbor to a neighbor, coworker to a fellow employee, so on and so forth. Bredesen supports more government involvement in the exercise of the Second Amendment. You can't vote for someone like that. John Tester, Senator, Montana, Democrat in a red state, needs to be voted out. Claire McCaskill, Senator in Missouri, Democrat in a red state, needs to be voted out. Bill Nelson, Senator in Florida, Democrat in a red state, needs to be voted out. Joe Manchin, Democrat in West Virginia, Senator in West Virginia, Democrat in a red state, needs to be voted out. In Tennessee, there's an open seat. Republican Marsha Blackburn, who is as pro-Second Amendment as a human can get. Marsha Blackburn versus Democrat Phil Bredesen, who is pro-gun control. Folks, vote the Democrats out, and in Tennessee, don't let the Democrat in. Vote Marsha Blackburn. It's just what has to be done. Now, someone's going, why don't you mention Heitkamp in North Dakota? Because there's no reason to. She's going to get beat. Heidi Heitkamp also voted against Justice Kavanaugh. She did that to thumb her nose at those of you in North Dakota because you've already rejected her. She thumbed her nose at those of you in North Dakota who are gun owners. It was an embarrassing show of arrogance and bitterness. That's what she did with her vote in opposition to Kavanaugh. So, folks, great week, big wins. Justice Kavanaugh is on the Supreme Court. Trump is defending the Second Amendment, but we still have a battle ahead of us. Midterm elections. Vote those red state Democrats out. Oppose Phil Bredesen in Tennessee. Vote for Marsha Blackburn. And when we get that done, we can really roll with Trump's pro-gun agenda, which includes national reciprocity. Folks, you're listening to Bullets with AWR Hawkins. We're going to be back after this with a guest who will both break your heart and will fire you up. And he's the father of one of the shooting victims in the February 14, 2018 Parkland school shooting. We'll be back after this.
Breitbart News Daily with Alex Marlow.
Why did we see some of the Republican kissing of Mark Zuckerberg that was taking place?
I called it kissing the ring because I felt like every single person practically had to kiss the ring of this guy, who wants to do nothing except get all those people out of office. So, bizarre behavior from the Republicans.
Breitbart News Daily, weekdays at 6 a.m. Eastern on SiriusXM Patriot 125.
This is Bullets with AWR Hawkins, a Breitbart.com podcast. Here once again is AWR Hawkins.
Folks, welcome back to Bullets with AWR Hawkins. We have a great guest this week, Andrew Pollack. I've interviewed his son, Hunter, before. And Andrew lost his daughter in the Parkland attack, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School attack. His daughter was Meadow. And so I know that everybody would join me in telling him that our hearts break over that. And there's really nothing else we could say about that. Our hearts break over his loss. But he has emerged as a man of conviction, pushing for change to keep schools safe. And to hear him speak to us today is going to be quite an honor. So, Andrew, thank you for making time to be with us.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me on this morning.
So, Andrew, I don't want to go back to that terrible day, but I mean, your loss is so tremendous. You've come from that. I know you've come from that with a wrongful death suit against the people that you think were really liable. I know recently you told Alyssa Milano in a tweet, for summing it up, quit blaming the NRA for my daughter's death. You talked about the people that are really responsible. Can you talk to us as a father who lost so much and you're so rational? Who's responsible in your mind, or where does the blame lie for what happened that day?
Well, it starts that there's so many people that are to blame that I'm actually putting a book together because it's crazy, because when I look at it, I just get so angry. I don't even want to live in this county where I live now, because there's so many people that didn't do their jobs, that didn't care, and policies that were in place February 14th that are still in place in Broward County even after the 17 murders. You could start with his mental health. It started in elementary school. This kid, they have his records of he was walking around like a dog. He thought he was a dog when he went to school, trying to bite people and stuff. So there's a lot of his disciplinary records and mental health records show how evil this kid was. He was a sociopathic criminal. He dreamed of blood. He dreamed of killing people. He dreamed of guns. There's one record where they were worried one summer that there was a hatchet missing from his house. But they were worried about the hatchet missing from his house, but they were okay with sending this thing to school with my daughter and those other victims. So there's so many. There's the sheriff's office that went to his house over 40 times without arresting him. There's drinking gasoline. There's threatening. Multiple times he threatened people's lives with no accountability. He could have been fully Baker acted, and he never would have been able to buy that rifle. So the gun laws were in place. The mental health laws were in place to prevent him from buying a rifle. But nobody did their jobs.
Right. All right, Andrew, I'm going to ask you a question that it's obvious, but I just want to hear you say it. You're saying that after all of this gun control push, the facts are that the law to stop him was already in place. It just wasn't enforced.
Well, there was many laws. And when these people start talking to me with these gun laws and I see them, it's a distraction and it's a deflection from making our kids safe at the schools. When they talk about gun control. Because, right here, there's a big red flag that went off in Broward that has nothing to do. This kid should never have ever been able to buy a rifle if they did their jobs. But no one's looking at the people that didn't do their jobs, because you know why? I'm going to tell you. It's easy to just say it was the gun.
Right.
Let's just say it was the gun, okay? So all these left, the people on the left, or these liberals, they don't want to look at the real issues. They don't want to look at Obama's diversionary programs that he put in place over here in Broward, because that's where the issues are also. I didn't get into them on the show. But it's easy for these people just to say it's the gun. And there's even parents down here that lost their kids that don't want to see it. And they're blaming the guns too.
Right. Well, I've heard you speak, and you speak passionately, as you're doing right now, and you speak rationally. Tell me, Andrew, something we could do going forward. And I know tell me a number of things, but what can we do going forward in your mind? We want to make a real difference. We want to keep our kids safe. What are some steps we could literally take right now at the schools that could promote greater safety for the kids, so that when parents drop them off in the morning, they know that when they go there to pick them up, the kids are going to be there and they're going to be safe?
Yep. Since Columbine, every time there's been a school shooting, the focus has been on gun control. And in 20 years, they haven't done nothing. The people. Nothing has been done in 20 years. Until now, we're starting to get a lot of stuff done now with school safety, with more armed guards in the schools. In Florida now, when I had a bill passed that every school now has armed guards in it. In Florida, it's the law. So, but what I would tell parents right now, because I'm sick to my stomach living in Florida, in Broward, they have these programs, diversionary programs. That means they wanted to stop the school to prison pipeline in Broward County, so they stopped arresting kids in Broward. So kids are not held accountable in Broward County for committing multiple crimes in a school year. And I never knew this. I didn't know that they were letting kids, because there's I don't like to say this kid's, it's 18-1958. That's his prison ID number. I don't like to say his name. So there's a 18-1958 out in every school out there in the country. They're out there. These kids, these sick, demented kids are out there with mental health issues. And the problem is, they're so worried about these kids' rights that go to school with our beautiful children that they're not worried about the kids that want to just go to school and learn and be with their friends. Right. So the big majority of the kids that are going to school, like my daughter that wants to just learn and have a good time with her friends, they're sacrificed by a few sick individuals that they're worried about their rights so much. Right. Which I'm not saying don't take care of these kids, but we shouldn't take care of these kids and sacrifice the majority of all the kids in the schools.
No, I'm with you. See, this is how the left works, though, Andrew. You know that. I mean, I just covered a story in Mill Creek, Utah, where a girl was assaulted at a Starbucks, and before the assault could continue, a concealed carrier pulled his gun and shot the attacker and saved the girl. Well, there are some people trying to figure out if that guy should face charges for what he did. That's how the left works. They're so worried about the attacker's rights and we're in a world upside down. So the attacker at Parkland, he didn't have to go to prison because of the policy, the diversionary policy you're talking about. But look what resulted. See, the left's trade-off is just carnage.
They think that by not holding them accountable, this is the mentality of these people. They're going to think that by not holding this kid accountable, all of a sudden when he turns 18, he's going to be a role model citizen for society. You know what I'm saying? So what happens in Broward is when kids get out of school, the felony rate has skyrocketed in Broward because all of a sudden they're getting handcuffed. Click, click, because when they commit a crime, when they get out of high school, they're held accountable. So now the kids are getting felonies, right? Right. Instead of learning their lesson when they're younger, right, where they could be taught a lesson and maybe they never get in trouble again. Or, better yet, maybe they do get arrested and then a nut who killed my daughter can never buy a rifle. Right. Legally. He can't get a rifle legally. Well, what asked me about parents need to get involved and know what's going on in the schools. Because I figured, like most parents, you're going to send your kid to school and they're going to be safe. My daughter's going to come home. I'm going to see her. I'm going to give her a kiss. I live in a suburb over here, which is supposedly safe. But I didn't know they had these kids in the school with my daughter. So parents need to get involved. It's parent involvement. The bureaucrats took our schools away from the parents. That's what they did. They took what's going on in the schools. The parents don't even know. You got the teachers union, doesn't represent the teachers. They're like another branch of the Democratic Party. They don't represent teachers. I had a big school board race here in Broward. The teachers don't want these programs. They don't feel safe in the schools. But the Broward Teachers Union endorsed the person that was in favor of these policies in Broward. So the parents, if you're listening out there and you think your kids are safe in school, you really got to look into it and see what's going on at the schools. There's similar issues going on in Santa Fe. I talk to the parents in Santa Fe. I keep in touch with them of underreporting crimes at the schools. There's federal money involved, so they underreport or they don't report. So it's a big problem, and there's nothing wrong with a parent keeping your kid home, virtual school, or charter schools. Charter schools don't have to, they're more business-oriented, the person that own the charter schools. So they don't deal in Broward, they don't deal with the same policies as the public schools, the charter schools.
Right on. Well, let me ask you a question that, kind of wind our time down. But throughout the covering this story out of Parkland, I was repulsed to my core by Deputy Scot Peterson. I can't tell you how repulsed I was. And I know I can't touch you. I know what you felt for him is far deeper and more intense than what I felt. But what's happening with him? I was repulsed, Andrew, that he was able to resign and draw a pension after standing outside of that building while that attack was going on. And I know, I know you've brought a suit against him, but has anything changed, or is he still just drawing a pension, living his life?
He's still drawing a pension. This guy, so if your listeners don't know, he drove to the building. He went to the building where my daughter was, and he knew what was going on inside the building, and he chose not to go in. He let the shooter go up to the third floor where my daughter was, while he just stood behind a pillar, a cement pillar, and he let those kids get slaughtered inside that school. My daughter was shot 9 times total. Okay, so forever is listening. And this Peterson, who's supposed to be there on duty with his bulletproof vest, chose not to go in that building and save all those kids. And one of them 100% would have been my daughter, because she was on the 3rd floor. So Peterson resigned after like a week. When the video came out, he chose to resign when they knew they had him, and he lied. You know what's unbelievable too? I'm going to tell you. Not only was this Peterson a coward, he got on the radio and prevented the other first responders from coming in the building. He told them there's kids getting shot on the 1st floor, right? And he's telling the people to take cover at the street to stop traffic at the corner while the shooter's still on the 1st floor. They got him on the radio with the time. So Wednesday, he's supposed to go in front of the commission. Wednesday, they have a safety commission to look into the shooting, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas commission. It's in Florida going on now. So they have their meeting. They subpoenaed this deputy to come in for questioning because what I think he did was not only coward, but it was criminal by not letting the other first responders get in the building where they could have saved people's lives. So Wednesday, I'm hoping to see this guy. I'm going to go show up early, get myself a spot by the door so I could see him when he comes in.
Well, unbelievable.
That's what I'm going to do Wednesday. Give him a piece of my mind when I see him.
Well, I mean,
if he even shows up.
What I hope, he came out in that interview after that. I know you saw it on NBC or CBS, and he said if I could do it all over again, I would have gone in. You don't get to do things all over. And the thing is, I don't know. I'm not going to get in. I mean, he just burned me up, because the thing that breaks my heart, Andrew, not just for your daughter, but for your daughter, but for all those other kids too. He was there I think he was there 90 seconds into a 4 to 6 minute attack. So there's a 4.5 minute span after he's there where he's just standing outside while this kid's in there doing whatever he wants. And the purpose of Peterson on campus was to stop something like this.
Yep. And like I said, my daughter was on the 3rd floor. They got her on video. She got shot 4 times first down the hallway. And so then she crawls back to the door to get back in. She can't get in. She covers she covers a freshman, my daughter, and she must have been there begging, like screaming for someone to come help her. And this guy was down there. The shooter came by again, and he shot my daughter another 5 times at point blank. And the bullets actually went through my daughter and went into the young girl underneath my daughter and killed them both.
Unbelievable.
By this guy, and they let him resign, the sheriff. That's why the sheriff's under a big investigation too. The sheriff here, Broward, he doesn't even come out of his house much.
Well, yeah.
They're looking into. There's an investigation going on against him also, because the response and lack of training, and he should have fired this guy when he had the chance. He had over a week to fire this guy, and he let him resign.
Unbelievable. Andrew, you told me a website before we started speaking, and we've spoken now, and I've forgotten it. What's the website where people can keep up with what you're doing, support what you're doing?
Sure, you could follow me on my Twitter, Andrew Pollack FL, or you could Americans4class.org. That's Americans FOR class.org. That's my website. I put all my articles that go up get published go on there, and just what I'm doing. There's a big fight going on, probably across the country, or everyone is. November 6th, people got to get out and vote. It's very important, this election, to see which way the country's headed.
Right on. I agree with you. Andrew, again, my heart breaks for your loss, and I mean that. And I have the utmost respect for you, and thank you for making time to be with us on the podcast this week.
No, I enjoy coming on with you guys and the articles that you guys put out.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Folks, you're listening to Bullets with AWR Hawkins, Breitbart News Podcast. We'll be back right after this.
Breitbart News Tonight with Joel Pollack and Rebecca Mansour.
The real thing that the left is angry about is they're like, how could you allow these Russian memes? Somebody saw a meme and then they decided they had to vote for Trump. Or it must have been fake news. And by fake news, they mean conservative websites. Come on. But this is what the left thinks. Fake news. And by fake news, what they mean is shut down Breitbart.
Breitbart News Tonight. Weeknights starting at 9 p.m. East on Sirius XM Patriot 125.
This is Bullets with AWR Hawkins, a Breitbart.com podcast. Here once again is AWR Hawkins.
Welcome back to Bullets with AWR Hawkins, folks. Andrew's words, they just hit me because of the loss he suffered. His daughter's gone. And here's a man that sees things so rational, doesn't he? He understands, doesn't he? Gun bans don't stop bad people. Gun bans don't stop determined attackers. It's not the gun's fault. When someone robs a bank and they get in the getaway car and they flee, is it the getaway car's fault? It's not the gun's fault. It's the numerous people who failed to take action leading up to the event. And Andrew pointed all that out. It was great to speak with him. I hope you enjoyed listening to him. Folks, to wrap up this week, we had a husband, estranged, who broke into his wife's home, and so he ended up with assault charges and a couple other problems, gunshot wounds. Assault charges and gunshot wounds. But guess what? The wife protected her dignity and her life. And that's how it goes, folks. And this story is brought to you by the Second Amendment. Folks, we had an unbelievable story out of Mill Creek, Utah. A barista at Starbucks, she said that a customer came in who was very haggard looking, and that instead of lining up in front of the counter to order his drink, he just came in behind the counter and began beating her. Beat her and beat her and beat her. And she said she looked around and her fellow employees were just standing there watching. No one's helping. Now, I just want to let you know that's what happens in a culture where you have been inundated with anti-gun propaganda. It really is. We can look at Europe and see that. And I think I'll explain that in the next podcast. But you become a coward. You become indifferent. It's just something that happens to you in a gun control environment. Anyway, so her fellow employees are watching. She's being beaten, and then the man grabs a metal basket, hits her in the head so hard she collapses to the floor. When she hits the floor, he starts kicking her. And she said she could remember thinking, I do not want to die this way. And suddenly the man turned and walked off, and then she heard a gunshot. And guess what had happened? A concealed carry permit holder saw what was going on. He got the man's attention, and when the man turned toward him, he shot him. Guns save lives, folks. The girl expressed her gratitude that the man was armed. He was about a 60-year-old concealed carry permit holder. She said she knows who he is. He's a regular customer. She never dreamed he would be the one to save her life. She talked about how meek and mild he is, how well-mannered. She said she knows what his drink is, and she wants to thank him. The attacker was taken to the hospital in serious condition. The girl was treated at the hospital. She had to go, but she was released. She's going to be okay. Folks, this story is brought to you by the Second Amendment. Folks, thanks for listening to the podcast this week. Get your friends, your family members, your neighbors, your coworkers, get them to listen. They can go to iTunes, look up Bullets with AWR Hawkins, subscribe. It'll download every Tuesday to their phone. Get them to do that. And after they've listened, have them go give us a review. We need all the 5-star reviews we can get. Folks, reach out to me this week. As I've already said, no matter where you are in this world, reach out to me. AWR Hawkins at Breitbart.com. Reach out. Send your pictures. Send whatever. Everybody sends different things. Picture of their gun, picture of their new holsters, whatever. And send me your stories. Let me know what you're doing. Did you go to the range this week? Are you going to the range next week? Let me know what's going on, And I'll try to keep you posted with my articles each week and also with this podcast. But if you email me, I'll respond to you. We'll interact. Sure will. So, folks, again, it was great to be with you. And until we're together again, always remember, more guns equal more freedom.
Sonny's Corner with Sonny Johnson.
Everything in hip-hop is not bad. Kanye agreed with us, so let's love him today until he raps tomorrow and you turn your back. Because if you jump off when the fun of the moment is over, then you are in fact making Kanye the token he is accused of being. So please, don't do that. Don't go there.
Sonny's Corner with Sonny Johnson. Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. East on Sirius XM Patriot 125.